It was around 10 a.m. on September 11th when the bus coasted into a rest stop on the way down to North Carolina. The driver hopped out quickly to use the bathroom, and when he came back, he turned around with dread on his face and told the recruits that the World Trade Center had just been hit by two planes. That's not funny, Sami thought. His thoughts zoomed to the attacks of 1993 and how people had died then. He walked up the aisle to the driver and told him that this wasn't something to joke about. "No, I'm being serious," the driver said soberly, staring at the road. "The World Trade Center's been hit." Sami was confused and said nothing else. He went back to his seat, and while everyone else began buzzing with talk, he slouched in his chair, thinking about his family. As soon as they arrived at Camp Lejeune, Sami ran to use the phone. All he got was a busy signal droning in his ear. He was frustrated, but he had no choice except to keep trying during the free time in his training schedule. He went through processing and a week of combat training without being able to contact his family. One day, in the middle of one of his classes, a drill instructor screamed out his name. And drill instructors, as Sami told me, never call you in for something good. He went running. It was his recruiter on the phone. "Sami, your mom has been driving me crazy," the recruiter complained. His mother was standing like a drill instructor herself over the recruiter's desk on Fullerton Street. He handed her the phone. "I'm fine, Mom," Sami said to her questions. "How are you? How's everyone?" Everyone in his family was all right, but everyone in the family, in the military, in the world, also knew what the attacks meant. The training at Camp Lejeune is normally physically demanding, but that wasn't the half of it now. The atmosphere had immediately intensified as the soldiers were learning battlefield skills that they and their teachers now expected them to be using in short order. What everyone understood was the inevitability of war, and the new soldiers all paid very close attention. Sami was at Camp Lejeune from September 11th to 21st, 2001, and during that period he avoided all television. He simply refused to watch the news, the reports of the attacks, the depictions of the carnage, the latest developments. When the rest of the Marines would head to the television room after hours, he would go to the basketball court instead and shoot hoops by himself. He chose not to see it, he said, not because of his Arab heritage and the complications that could possibly create, but out of his New York pride. He couldn't bear to see his city wounded like that, he said, but he felt destroyed regardless and afraid about the future. And for the first time in his life, he started talking to God. He'd never been religious, but now everything was crashing in on him. His nights became solitary hours of sleeplessness. He was worried about dying. He kept mulling over two related questions in his head. Does my bloodline end here? And am I going to die? He made it through combat training and left for 6 weeks of job school. His options were in California, Hawaii, Okinawa, or on the East Coast. He chose 29 Palms, just outside San Diego, in the Mojave Desert. He took an aptitude test and was placed in telecommunications, where he was told that he would be in a room far away from war, working with satellites and state-of-the-art equipment. That also turned out not to be true. From his time in basic training to Camp Lejeune and then to job school at 29 Palms, Sami told no one that he was Arab American. And until he got to Kuwait, he had never mentioned that he spoke Arabic. He was blessed with a relatively ambiguous sounding name and dark good looks, Everywhere he went, Dan was with him, and they had bunked together as well. Everyone simply thought he was Hispanic. What he really was a New York Yankees fanatic. And the World Series was on. The Yankees were battling the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the series went to 7 games. Sami watched each game like a chess master, examining every move and hoping for the best. But the Yankees blew it and lost in the final stretch. And that night, Sami surprised himself by reacting extremely emotionally. He got up from the TV lounge and went to his room because he could feel the tears coming. He started sobbing uncontrollably for what felt like hours. Why am I crying so much, he wondered. It's just a game, but the stress of a coming war added to his sense of loss. Later that evening, he returned to an abandoned TV lounge and flipped through the channels with the remote. He landed on CNN, which was rebroadcasting a special on the September 11th attacks. Alone in a dark room, this was the first time he saw the footage, and he found that he couldn't move. He watched the show as if magnetically held by the electric blue of the television screen. As he stared at the images, the tears started to flow once again. Arabs did this, he thought. My own people? And his emotions began hardening to anger. Let's go now, he thought. He was resolved. He was ready to get his war on. But nothing changed that quickly. He still had training to complete and tasks to fulfill. In November 2001, he was assigned to Camp Pendleton and joined the 1st Marine Division. It's the oldest and most prestigious division of the Marines in the history of the United States, he said to his mother on the phone. The 1st Marine Division was formed during World War II, when on February 1st, 1941, it was put into action aboard the battleship Texas. But its history reaches back to March 8, 1911, with the formation of the 1st Marine Regiment at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He wondered if she could hear the pride in his voice over the phone line and feel her son changing into a soldier, because he was feeling it. With about 30 other people, Sami and Dan were assigned to communications in the radio sector. Life at Camp Pendleton was still relatively normal. Sami became a guide, a soldier delegated to lead other soldiers. He carried more responsibility and was on his way to promotion. A few soldiers at Camp Pendleton had been cherry-picked for the Afghan campaign, but not many. Daily life was generally routine, and Sami began earning combat pay. His parents had bought him a laptop computer for Christmas, and he would go online during off hours and talk with people around the country in different chat rooms. One of these was Anna, a Puerto Rican from New Jersey, and they began emailing each other. He bought a cell phone and would call her when they could coordinate schedules and time zones. He visited her for the first time during a break in his schedule of 2002, and they became a couple. Late in 2002, he and the other guides from Camp Lejeune who were with him at Pendleton were assigned to work a general's house during a party. They wore dress uniforms and handed out drinks and hors d'oeuvres. to the VIP crowd. Hors d'oeuvres. To the VIP crowd. The party clinked on well into the night until the last guest finally left, and then the general sat down and lit up a cigar. This was the first time Sami had had any casual conversation with a general. They all stood while the general talked to them from his soft leather chair. He asked about their work, but the conversation quickly turned to the future, to Iraq, and to the possibilities of war. Well, you boys better get ready, the general said. He puffed on his cigar. It looks like we're going somewhere.